Welcome to episode number 66 of Hip Talk Fanatics. I am here with Will Rucker, who is a big Sixers fan, and there's a lot to dive into, and I'm really interested to hear his thoughts on this team. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I know we've been trying to get it together for a little bit, but glad to be on.
My first question is, what are your thoughts on the Buddy Hield addition?
I think he's been a fantastic addition so far. Obviously, being able to get him for just 3 second-round picks basically is pretty huge. He fits perfectly. And right now, they're kind of playing him in more of a go-to guy role as opposed to when Joel Embiid will be back. He'll be more in that supporting role, and I think he's a perfect fit for that role. I always have since, but he has been in the league. He's been a guy that has been talked about to come to the Sixers for a long time, a guy that's always kind of shown interest in playing for the Sixers, and a guy that his fit was very obvious and seamless for the Sixers, and specifically with Joel Embiid. Kind of like how Embiid was with J.J. Redick and Marco Bellinelli and those guys, those movement shooters, guys to run DHOs with, whereas as we know, Embiid and Redick, when they were together, the number one play in the NBA was a dribble handoff between Redick and Embiid. And Hield provides that along with a little more juice as far as off the dribble and being able to get to the rim, make a little more of those passes, those secondary reads coming off the dribble handoffs. And I think it'll be big for Embiid to have that guy again where he hasn't had that pure knockdown, dead-eye shooter that teams have to really worry about. And it'll help Buddy Hield in his career as he'll be a guy that they rely on a lot offensively, specifically.
What do you think about Payne and his ability to just to shoot offensively and having that athleticism?
Yeah, I think the Payne addition is solid. Obviously, a lot of people are upset that they moved Pat Bev in order to get him, which I have my own thoughts on that. But I think that Payne, from a pure roster perspective, is probably a little bit better of a fit than Patrick Beverley is, especially given that Kyle Lowry is here now and that Payne will probably slide into that more of that third point guard role as opposed to just being the pure backup role. And Payne's a guy that can shoot it better than Patrick Beverley, can shoot off movement better, plays more pick and roll, is more of a natural pure point guard than Beverley is. So I think it's a fine addition. Obviously, a guy that's expiring, probably not a guy that you necessarily have in your future plans past this year, but you never know. We'll see how he wraps up the season, how he ends up fitting with Joel Embiid if he does end up getting some run with him once he gets back in the fold.
What are your thoughts on how last night went down? It definitely was a meltdown in the second half, and the Sixers just ran out of gas and energy. What were your takeaways from that game?
Yeah, obviously, a couple of brutal possessions where we couldn't get a rebound at the end that led to Miami being able to knock down a dagger there at the end. Obviously, something that you'd hope that if you have Joel Embiid, that doesn't happen. And also, we had a couple possessions offensively where we kind of were pulling teeth to try to get a good shot, and they were kind of keying in on Maxey and Buddy Hield and all coming off the actions that they were running, and we were kind of pulling teeth to get a bucket as to where Miami started to score more easily, started to be able to get to the rim a little bit, find their kickouts. I mean, it's a tough loss because it's a game that you could have won and probably should have won given how the game went, especially with them being on the second out of a back-to-back and being without Jimmy Butler as well. So it's a game that we wish we could have won, but also we were without a lot of guys, as we know. Batum, Tobias didn't play, Joel, obviously, D'Anthony Melton, some guys that are extremely key to what we're trying to do, especially if we want any hope of making a run in the playoffs. So hopefully we can get those guys back right after the break, aside from Embiid, and start to get the thing rolling a little bit and hopefully be able to keep ourselves in one of those top spots in the Eastern Conference because, as we know, seeding is extremely big as far as home court advantage and those things go.
What are your expectations for their next 4 games after the All-Star break?
Yeah, obviously got 4 really tough ones out of the break, but we get 3 of those at home. We got, I believe it's New York, then Cleveland, then Milwaukee at home, then we go to Boston, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully you can win 2 out of those 4 games. Would be a good start out of the break. And like I said, hopefully you'll have Batum and Melton back. That'll help a ton. Obviously, you'll have Kyle Lowry in the fold now too. So you'll have more options, more bodies to throw out there. But yeah, hopefully we can hold serve at home in at least 2 of those 3 games, and then hopefully go 500 in that little stretch, and then hopefully get things rolling right after that with everybody back. Also, Robert Covington should be back before too long too, if the original timeline of his after his procedure holds up, which you never know with guys that are that age, how things are going to heal. So we'll see what comes with him.
My next question is, once Tobias comes back from his injury, do you think that there will be more wins down the stretch before the break? Like after the break, do you think that anything more positive comes out of it than before the break?
I think we're going to win more games purely just because of the fact that we've struggled to win any games hardly the last couple of weeks since Embiid went down. Obviously, because of the personnel situation, and also probably a little bit of a mental thing with obviously your superstar MVP going down probably isn't great for morale of the team. So they're going to have to try to rally after the All-Star break and compile some wins together so they can stay afloat until hopefully they can get Joel back in a couple months or so before the playoffs get here. And Tobias, as you probably know, I'm not the biggest fan of Tobias and his game or his fit with the Sixers necessarily, but he's still another guy that can get you typically 17 so points per game and rebound a little bit. He's okay on the defensive end. He kind of just takes some bad, obviously he takes some bad shots, kind of hijacks the offense at times, which is where a lot of the frustration comes from with the fan base as far as him. And obviously his contract doesn't play up to that, but that's beside the point now that it's expiring and it comes off the books this offseason. But hopefully he can come back, get to playing some better basketball like he was more early in the season, where a lot of people thought that Nick Nurse had really unlocked him in his game with the Sixers. So hopefully he'll come back and help with that, as well as I've mentioned already, Melton and Batum, 2 guys that are huge for what we're trying to do. So hopefully we can get everybody back and we can get back on the right path.
Will, Will, do you think the Sixers will finish in the East?
I haven't really looked too deep into the other teams' schedules, but I know that we have a little bit of a tougher schedule in the second half of the season than a lot of teams do. So the main thing is, at worst case scenario, you don't want to get in the play-in tournament. You don't want to end up in that 7 or 8 spot where you have to play in a play-in game where you're 1 or 2 losses away from your season being over. So hopefully you can at least, at worst case, you fall to 6, but hopefully my hope is that we could stay in that between that 3 to 5 range. If we get on a run with some wins and rattle some wins off, you can get to 3. But obviously, it's going to be pretty tough with how some of those teams are playing right now. Cleveland's been playing really good basketball. New York, obviously, with their additions that they made pre-trade deadline, or have vaulted them to another level of contention. So if we can hold off the Miamis and the Indianas and those teams that are in that 5, 6, 7 area, that would be good for us, so as long as we can keep it in the top 5 at least, so we can stay out of that play-in.
My last question is, once MB makes his return, do you think the squad can really compete for a title, or do you think that they are missing a couple of assets?
It's really hard to say because with how Joel Embiid was playing, obviously we know with him it's all about his health and how much juice he'll have for the postseason, and how if he can stay healthy throughout a postseason run. Because with the way he was playing this year, it was one of the greatest seasons we've seen in modern basketball history, as far as his regular season production, which was the best scoring, putting together the best scoring seasons we've seen since Wilt Chamberlain. So if he can get back to that level of play and truly be at 100%, which I have my doubts about coming off of meniscus at his age and with his body type, but if we're being optimistic, if he can come back, be at 100%, stay healthy throughout the postseason, with the roster that they have, the additions of Buddy Hield, I think that they can definitely make a better run than they have in the past. The only team that I think they will really struggle against to beat, or would struggle to find a way to beat, is Boston, because of how they match up with us. Their wings, Tatum and Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, all the perimeter scoring that they have, and the fact that the Sixers are a little light on perimeter defense outside of D'Anthony Melton. I'm not sure how we'll be able to match up with them all that well, but you never know. Last year, some people said the same thing when we had James Harden, even, and we were up 3-2 with lead with 4 minutes to go in Game 6, and we're 4 minutes away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals and playing Miami. So you never know. It's all about. But I think the main thing is, if you're just really worried about Embiid's health, that's the main thing. If Embiid's 100%, it gives you a puncher's chance against anybody in any series, because you have arguably the best player in basketball when he's healthy. And I do think that the pieces around him are a lot better than they've been in the past as far as the role guys go. Batum fits great with Embiid. Buddy Hield's a phenomenal fit with Embiid. Then you've got a lot better guard depth now. Now when you go to your bench, you're bringing in Kyle Lowry and D'Anthony Melton, two guys that have played playoff basketball, that can defend, that have knocked down big shots for teams in the past. So that'll help. Paul Reed, obviously the best backup center I believe we've had in the Embiid era, whereas we've lost series in the past because our backup centers have completely tanked in their minutes that they've given us off the bench. You hope that Kelly Oubre can maintain his play in the postseason and not go rogue too much and bring you down, and that his energy and his intensity can carry over to postseason basketball. The Sixers probably have on paper, one of the deeper rosters in the league, you would say, but there are still doubts about if they have enough firepower as far as go-to guys or guys that can get a bucket in clutch situations outside of Embiid and Maxey. Do you really have that guy that can create for himself, or do you really? And then on the flip side of that, do you have one of those perimeter wings to really go throw at the Tatums, the Browns, even when you get to even the Jimmy Butlers, those guys, where we know how they elevate their games when it comes to the postseason. So it'll all come down to that, and it'll be interesting to see. I think that it's as wide open as it's ever been, even though Boston has kind of pulled away from the pack a little bit and showed to be an extremely strong team, but we have seen them struggle at times in the postseason once they get deeper into the playoffs. We've seen Joe Mazzulla struggle to make adjustments in some series. So that'll be put to the test when that time comes. And also, I think the ace card for the Sixers when it comes to the postseason this time around is that they do have Nick Nurse, who is a proven playoff coach, a guy that has won a championship before, a guy that will make adjustments, a guy that will make different game plans from game to game if need be, and as opposed to the past where you had guys like Doc Rivers who never made an adjustment in his entire life, and you would blow 20-point leads and 3-2 series, 2-0 series leads on a regular with all bench lineups out there. I think the Nurse is definitely a coach more equipped to win in the playoffs, and with this roster, I think it gives you at least a chance. So as the Sixers, the Sixers have hurt us a lot in the past and let us down in situations where we thought that it was time. So I'm kind of just taking a cautious approach to it all, and hopefully, if Joel Embiid is back 100% healthy, that's my main thing that I'm looking forward to.
I'm really interested to see like how they match up against Milwaukee and Boston in a couple of weeks with Kyle Lowry in the lineup, and having his addition with besides on the side of Maxey, Tobias, for example. I think that it's going to be a really interesting matchup to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I was just saying the other day that if we could that if in a fantasy world we could get a time machine and put all of the current Sixers role players in their prime, we'd be the best team in basketball. If we could get prime Kyle Lowry, prime Nick Batum, prime Robert Covington,
Yeah.
if those guys were all in their prime, because they play the exact roles that we need them to play. They're just not as good at those roles as they once were. But you never know in a playoff series, guys rise up all the time, especially guys that have experience in those settings. You're more prone to rely on them, and they oftentimes will come through in big spots even when you don't expect it, because they're battle tested and they're guys that really want to win, especially guys later in their career. Lowry obviously has a championship already, but other guys that like Batum, Covington, that really haven't won a championship yet in their career or anything like that. You never know, they can muster it up for a month stretch, stay relatively healthy, and turn back the clock a little bit to give the Sixers the boost that they are going to need. Even if Embiid and Maxey are playing at their full capabilities, you're always going to need that third, fourth, fifth guy to step up, knock down big shots to go steal you a game on the road every now and then in the playoffs.
It's definitely going to be an interesting rest of the season. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on. And hopefully I'll have you back on to preview or recap the playoffs.
For sure, man. I'll look forward to it. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you.